Well, hey there, everyone. This is Dave Dubeau. Welcome to this episode of the Property Profits Real Estate Podcast. And today it is my pleasure to be interviewing and chatting with an old friend, July Ono. July, how are you doing today?
Awesome. Thank you.
So if you have not had the pleasure of meeting July, learning from July, reading one of July's books, taking some training from July. She is an amazingly astute real estate entrepreneur. And July and I met way back when I say 2003, July says 2004. She's probably right because she's got a better memory than I do. But bottom line, we were at a T. Harv Eker event with 700 people in there. And I don't know what we were doing, breaking boards or doing something wonky. We were part of this working together as a little group. And at that time in my life, I was the, how many business cards can I hand out and collect kind of guy. So I was making a very awkward attempt at networking, not doing it very well, and, really not following up with anybody. So I had a shoebox full of business cards I did nothing with. And July really stuck out because we met and we did the card thing and I forgot all about it. But July said, okay, Dave, I'll follow up with you early next week. Is that okay? And I said, sure. And I promptly forgot all about that and jumped in my little I Buy Houses minivan and tore off for Kamloops again. And sure enough, 2 or 3 days later, I get a phone call. And who is it? But it's July Ono. And we had a nice little conversation. And July said, well, Dave, would you mind if I, or would you like if I added you to my mailing list? And I said, sure, why not, July? And at that time, July was doing a monthly electronic newsletter. So whether it was 2003 or 2004, but bottom line, every single month, without fail, I got a lovely update from July. And that always stuck in my mind. What a difference. What a schmuck I was being doing the networking the way I was doing it, and how well July did it. Now, fast forward 15 years, and I believe July at that time, and correct me if I'm wrong, you were just really kind of getting started with real estate investing. I think you only had a couple of deals under your belt relative to how big you grew your portfolio. So remind me, how, roughly, if you can remember around that time, how many properties would you have had at that time?
Hey, 2003, that was our first 63 unit in Fort St. John. And 2004 was a 66 unit in Fort St. John, so 129 units. So in 2001, right. 2002, I had a fourplex in Fort St. John, a fourplex in Prince George, and a nineplex in Chetwynd.
Right. So she's just getting started. Fast forward a decade or so, and July built up the portfolio to well over 524
units.
Pardon me?
524 units, about 12 properties in Prince George, Fort St. John, and Thunder Bay, Ontario.
So it definitely worked. All that networking definitely worked. And I won't take away your thunder, July, because I'll have you tell us briefly how you got started in real estate, because it is one of the most inspirational stories I know of, and one that I've repeated, hopefully correctly, quite a few times, because I use you as a running example of, hey, you can start from a little bit behind the eight ball and still definitely take massive action, get successful in real estate. So July, let's get started. Just tell us a little bit about where you were at and how you got involved in real estate investing in the first place, if you would.
Well, it was a D word that started the whole thing, Dave. Divorce. So
hey, I know that D word, yeah, for sure.
And also another D, devastated by life. So back in way back in 1995, I lost my husband, my first husband. I lost my job. I lost everything in 6-month window. And so I had to reinvent my life. And that's a huge trauma when you have no job and you have no house and my husband's gone. And so I ended up moving back home with my parents, lived in a basement suite, downsized. And it was quite the humbling and very humiliating experience for me, because I think I was around 35 years old and I had the vision of being the millionaire at 40. And I totally wasn't expecting that setback. And realized I'd gone through university, I'd gone through school, get a good job, get good grades. And it's like, what a bunch of bunk that is. I said, no, totally doesn't work. I have to go and do something 180 degrees different. And so I said, everything I've wanted to do and didn't do, I'm going to do. And my parents were very supportive. They just want to be happy.
Nice. And
so the first thing I did was I enrolled myself into acting class. And it was so scary. I was just scared shitless, actually. I don't know why I was doing it, but guess what? Going into acting was the foundation of becoming a public speaker later.
Right.
And what acting really is all about? Get this. It's all about how to be authentic and sincere. And I said, what? I was trying to pretend to be somebody else. And they're going, not really. That's not how real acting works. It's about tapping into your truthfulness, tapping into your authenticity, being that person in that particular situation. And so for 8 years, I'm practicing breath work, grounding, breath work, grounding. And guess what? Breath work is what you need as a public speaker. And the authenticity is what you need to convey to people that you really are sincere. Mm-hmm. And people can see insincerity on the screen. The camera doesn't lie. Mm-hmm. And it's horrible when you see yourself for the first time being filmed because you're seeing what you're not. It's very, very awful. There's no congruency. Right. And I'm going, wow, if the camera can see that, that means people can see it way better. And that's why I would attribute the acting classes to a great foundation of always staying in the now, being in the present with people, not going too far ahead, always being here for that person, for you. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I do with my investors, by the way. I'm not going in the future trying to anticipate what they're going to say. I allow them to be them, and I'm present with them as they're speaking. And I'm attentive to what, because as an actor, you have to listen to your other actor in order to be able to respond. And you don't know what they're going to do, and your responses have to be truthful in that moment. And so same thing with your investors is don't try to push them, manipulate them, let them be. A lot of investors are afraid. Mm-hmm. They're skeptical. They don't trust you. Everyone's after the money, right? They've had bad experiences. And so the best thing that you can do is simply listen and really listen. I'm good at taking notes. And so what is their number one concern? Address it. Right. Don't just shove it under the rug. And I when I'm mentoring people saying, July, I'll tell you, I can't get any investors. And it's like, okay, give me your 2 minutes. Let me see your presentation. And usually within 30 seconds, I'll say, stop. You know what? You're not even listening to me. You're talking at me.
Right.
You haven't even asked me one question as to what are my investing goals. Mm-hmm. You're only concerned about yourself. No wonder people shut you off in the first 30 seconds, because I certainly did. And I said, stop, get present. And I said, your spiel means nothing to me. You can have the deal of a decade, but I already know you don't care about me. Mm. It's that simple. And I usually ask them, do you want the truth? Because I know exactly what's wrong. And I know exactly why people don't give you money. It's simply because they don't trust you. When your agenda is more important than their agenda, they simply won't give you money.
That's deep. Yeah, that's very deep. So we got off on a tangent already. So yes, 1995, you've gone through 6 months, Al. You're taking acting classes. How does that lead into creating an amazing real estate portfolio?
The acting classes helped me become a better networker.
Right. Okay.
Up to that, I was a hermit. I had a total of 5 friends. I have a very tiny, tiny network, which is why I had a very tiny net worth. And I had to learn every mentor I'd spoken to, listened to, read about, and Harvey, the greatest mentor in my life. You have to become a people person. And it's like, no, I love data. I love analyzing. No, it's all people make the difference, and how true that is. And so a lot of the acting to get out of my comfort zone it helped transition me into networking because I have to be around people.
Right.
And so I made it a purpose. I made meeting people a strategy. So it's like, okay, when I go out, I'm going to meet at least one person that I can personally connect with and make a really lasting connection. And then I said, well, so many people we just meet. I had a same thing. I have a shoebox full of cards, and then I feel stupid, 6 months later, hi, remember we met? Which is too far, and you never follow up. And so I just said, we need to start something that can stay in connection with people every single month thereafter. What is it? I don't know. I can't phone everybody. And that's when the newsletter was born. At the time, it was email. I remember getting my first 20 and then my first 100. So I made goals. And so and then eventually I had my first 1,000. And by the way, I personally cut,
and paste,
attach, paste, send, cut, attach, paste, send, like 1,500 emails.
Wow.
It took 8 hours to just send the emails out one by one, because that's all I could do it. I know. And it was, my database was getting bigger, and I go, I have to find a way. And this was at the time when these platforms were starting to come out, making it easier to send newsletters out. Oh, that was, but I was fanatical. I would be up at 4 a.m. sending my newsletter out, because it's that important, Dave. It is that important to stay in connection with the people you meet and know.
Well,
because if you don't,
consistent communication, that's the key right there. Consistency. What are you doing to make a living at this time? So I mean, you
I was working in the city of Vancouver.
Yeah.
As the clerk in the sanitation department. But the thing is, it was very easy work. Like it wasn't 8 hour a day work. I could finish all my boss's work in 2 hours. Then I had 6 hours left to do everyone else's job. And I was still doing real estate investing inside of all that. So I would do real estate in the car on the way to work. And then my break, my lunch, my break, I'm doing real estate. I'm going in, I'm looking at the classified ads. I'm phoning people about deals. I'm scheduling seminars, like going to seminars. I'm scheduling time interviews with real estate agents, mortgage brokers.
But how did you get that spark about real estate in the first place? How did you go from being an employee and having that, white picket fence lifestyle? I mean, I know you went through the 6 months of hell, but what was it that sparked your passion for real estate? What was that?
My second husband. To be Steve.
Yeah. Nice.
So we had met around the time I was making this transition, and he wanted nothing to do with personal development at the time. But when he met Harv, everything changed. The guy literally changed our lives. And we learned about the 4 money mountains, which is like real estate, infopreneuring, multi-level marketing, and something else. So of all the business. So Steve said, building a business takes a lot of time. It's a good 5 to 7 year uptick before you start to actually get good at it. And that's if you're good. So forget the business for now. We'll leave big business for last. In internet, MLM marketing, I'm not really into multi-level marketing. I tried many, didn't really work because I'm not into that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't have a personal connection with it. And doing residual, like books, publishing, infopreneuring was very new. The internet market was so new. I once spent $100,000 trying to learn how to monetize the internet. Didn't work. So I put that away. And Steve said, real estate is easy. There's no barrier to entry. You don't need specialized knowledge to start buying real estate. You can just buy it. And I'm going, okay. So he said, that's the number one. We become experts in real estate first. And then once we have built up the cash flow and the equity base, then we can add the other money mountains as we go along. So he's the one that actually said, I've always wanted to go into real estate investing, but his ex-wives never wanted to do it. It was too uncomfortable.
Isn't that, I mean, looking back in 2020 hindsight, isn't it amazing the influence your partner, your spouse has? I mean, you hear about it
all the time. Yes.
You have to meet realize it until that big D hits or something like that. Right?
So it's interesting. One plus one, Stephen, we became like 11, the power of 11 doing it.
Yeah.
And so I've actually coached, as I'm sure you have, couples where one partner wants to do it and the other doesn't. And it's never successful. And in the end, when one becomes very successful, it ends up in divorce. Yeah. And so I always say, you both have to be on the same page if you want to be coached by me. And so, because I know the other person will totally drag you down, be an anchor, stonewall, and block any attempt at you being successful because they're so afraid.
Yeah.
I was really wanting to do it, and so was Steve. And we're going gangbusters together, just busting through all of our comfort zones together. And it's a lot easier when you have a partner there supporting you emotionally.
So let's we're taking a trip down memory lane here. So my recollection of your very first real estate deal was, didn't you get 4 or 5 friends who basically had very little money between them together and buy a single condo or something like that? Isn't that how you got started, Carl?
That was the very, very first deal. I never bought it, by the way, but I found a townhouse in Langley, the Tri-Cities, and the owner wanted like $145,000, I think. And I had gone to a seminar, and there were like 30 to 35 people in this room. I met every single person. Hi, I'm July Ono. I'm a real estate investor. See my book? And I had a wire bound, and on each page, on one page I had the picture cut out, stuck on the page with all the little info, square footage, number of bedrooms, that kind of stuff, right? And the address. On the other page, I had my analysis as to, does it cash flow, what's the rent, all the kind of stuff. And I had 68 pages of this, 67 pages of this, all no's, why it didn't work. And they could see that I had date, they were all dated, all numbered, big 1, big 2. And I spent 6 months going through 67 deals that didn't work. And believe me, after every deal I quit. Oh, this real estate's too hard. It's just different, okay? Yeah. Every day I would get up and start again. So I quit and start, quit and start, quit and start. So finally I said, you know what, July, just stop quitting, just keep starting. Nice. And so I kept going and going. And guess what happened?
You found one.
I started seeing a correlation between the numbers, because I'm not the best at math. But, you know, after doing this over and over and over and analyzing deals, I'm finally going, hey, when a building's worth this much, the rent's that much, I already know it doesn't work. So I was able to pretty much skip out all the property that didn't work. And then finally, I think 6 months in, I'd gone looking at properties from Vancouver Island all the way to PEI to Nunavut, Alaska.
Oh my God.
I went all across Canada looking for deals. And I realized way too big, too much. So I had to cut off the east, and I kept BC and Alberta. Okay. And guess what? Still too big. Mm-hmm. I can't be doing 2 provinces. So I had to cut Alberta out, and I focused on BC, still too big. Mm-hmm. I'm going, okay, I have to find a market in BC where to invest. Where? So I started from the Lower Mainland, just on my block. And I realized, oh, too expensive, doesn't cash flow. And I kept going up, you know, went into the Kootenays, the Caribou. Oh. I just kept going up and up and up and up. And then finally, bingo, I hit Prince George, Fort St. John, and Dawson Creek. And all of a sudden, the prices relative to the rents started making sense. And I actually flew up there to Fort St. John and Prince George to actually do the drive-bys myself. And that's when deal number, so I'm getting ahead of myself. The 6 people at the because I do everything in my little planner. Yeah. I said, what are you doing, Dave? Mm-hmm. Where's your real estate plan? Oh, okay. Well, you know, I got the excuses from everybody because no one had the book that I had.
Oh, hell no.
I just said, so I started taking pledges. So how much would you like to invest with me? I have this deal I'm working on right now, this townhouse in Langley. And so I collected like 28 names with any amount from $500 to $10,000 on this list. So I got the names, the phone numbers, the amounts, and then I kept going. And I at the end of the day, I actually had $90,000 pledged.
Wow.
Now, not actual money, but pledged to me. I'm going, wow, that made me feel really rich. It made me feel confident because I had $0. I'm like $40,000 in debt with no savings. after my divorce. And it's like, wow, this is real collateral that I can actually use. So I went out there and negotiating with this townhouse. And so I went to make the offer. And so when I went down my list, I did not take all 28 people. Could have. I just picked the 5 people with $10,000.
There we go. Yeah.
Okay.
I hope you didn't take too many $500.
No.
Yeah.
No. Because that was the easiest to deal with, the 5,000, the 5 people. And the 6th person was me. And so they would all buy my share. And so we would be a 6-way split with the 5 people with their money. That's how we were going to do the math on splitting this deal. And so the guy actually lied to me, because I went to the home. He told me that upstairs was rented for $900 and the bottom suite was rented for $600, $1,500 a month rent. And I said, cool. So then I went to the city and asked them about, is this a legal suite? Apparently, back then in that time frame, they were all illegal suites. So there was no way to actually make it legal. Didn't have that. And then when I went actually to the building on an off day, the owner didn't know I was showing up, I'll just do my drive-bys. I stopped because there's a truck in the driveway. And I'm going, what's this person doing here? So I pulled up and I went walking into the building. I said, hi, thinking maybe it might be the owner. And no, it's a construction guy. And he's building a bathroom in the downstairs unit. I'm like, what are you doing? He said, oh, I'm putting a suite in the basement here. What do you mean you're putting it in? I thought there already was one. No, there wasn't. So I called the owner up while I'm there. I said, hey, Michael, I thought you told me there was a basement suite. Oh, yeah, there is. That makes $600 a month. Are you sure? Oh, yeah, sure. So I'm standing in your basement suite right now. And there is no $600 a month, but it's going to make $600 a month. Yeah. It's going to make. So there you have the first lie. Then I got me to thinking, what else is he lying about?
Of course, yeah. Right? That's a bald-faced lie. So I mean, if you can do that.
And I already had that. So the earnest money was, I think, $500. One of the investors wrote it out. Of course, because I walked away from the deal, we got the money back, right? Mm-hmm. Got to do all that right. So that was our first deal. And, if it had gone through, it still would have been a good deal.
Yeah.
Because that townhouse in Langley did double in value.
So what was the first deal that went through with investor partners?
And the very next one, which was deal number 68. And that was a fourplex in Fort St. John. Yeah, so it was, this is where our colleague, Darren Weeks, pointed out to me that I had received 67 no's until the 68th deal. And that created $34,000 equity day one. Wow. Because it was appraised at $220,000 and I bought it for $186,000. That's a $34,000 difference on my net worth bottom line. Mm-hmm. And so Darren did quick math. He divided $34,000 by 68. It's $500 a no.
Yeah, that's not too bad.
And I'm going, he says, you got paid $500 for every no. Do you realize that, July? And I went, no, that's fantastic. So I come on a reframe. Yeah. So you see, every time I get a no, for me, it's like ka-ching, because I'm getting paid for every no. So that's, and it's not really rejection, which is why I handle rejection very differently today now. After that.
So how many investors did you have on that first deal?
2.
2. Nice. Two of the same ones that signed up?
Nope, different.
Different people. Okay. But
it's really a sad story. It's a sad story and a happy story because remember on that list, I found the one investor with $40,000. Yeah. And she was someone that I met at these seminars and wanted to go into real estate investing. We partnered together verbally. And I went to the whole thing. I did the deal, this fourplex worth $220,000. I had the appraisal. I negotiated down with the help of my mentor to what from 207 was the list price. Got it down to 196. Got it down to 192. Finally bought it for 186. That was the net. And so fantastic deal. Interestingly enough, Steve, my husband today, he's the one that actually came up with the 6 profit centers in real estate. And later on, we expanded to 7 profit centers in real estate. And he was explaining to me how to explain it to my investor, my money backer. And in the process of doing all this stuff and helping me present my presentation, he's going, wow, this is a really great deal. If you didn't already have an investor, I'd take it myself.
Who was this, your Steve?
My Steve, yeah.
Yeah, you're Steve, okay.
He was my mentor at the time.
Ah, okay. Yeah. Now I'm getting it.
Okay. He's my secret mentor. At the time, we were just, you know, we just met. He wasn't really my date.
Just friendly, not that friendly.
Yeah, he was just mentoring me.
Got it.
He then eventually became my husband, of course.
Yeah.
And so this girl that I had, a woman, I decided to choose a woman because I wanted to empower us. But she got cold feet the week before the closing. But the thing is, I learned my lesson. I didn't collect the money from her until after I had removed subjects. Uh-oh. So now I'm forced to close on this deal, and I have no money partner. So what do? I have to come up with $186,000 out of nowhere. It's like, okay, I'm hooked. So I put on my my investor cap, going, I got to go out and find money. And then I remembered what Steve said. So I went back to him and said, hey, Steve, remember when you said that this was such a good deal? If I didn't have an investor partner, you would buy in? Well,
guess what?
That person walked away. It's available now. You know what? For him, it was a no-brainer. Just wrote out a check for $48,000. Was it $48,000? Yeah. And line of credit money, by the way, sits there doing nothing. And he didn't hesitate. He jumped on it right away before I found another investor partner. Nice. And the whole deal worked out. And then 18 months later, I got an offer, an unsolicited offer from a realtor saying, I have clients, they're interested in buying your fourplex or interested in selling. And I remember something that Steve told me, never mention a figure, never. The other person has to mention the figure first. Yeah. That's how negotiating starts. And so the realtor asked me, how much are you willing to sell it for? And I said, remember what he said? I said, well, I have a partner. I'm not allowed to I can't even venture to think if we're even going to sell. But I'll have to call him first. But what were you planning on offering, if I may ask? And she mentioned a figure that was $100,000 more than I thought I was going to get. Like literally $100,000 more. Wow. I'm going, my jaw dropped. Good thing I'm on the phone because I'm going, oh my God, no way. How can a property go up that much in 18 months? I thought there was something screwy going on. So I called Steve up and I said, hey, I just got a call from this realtor and they want to buy the property for $370,000. Yeah. 186, 370. Like, how could it do that in 18 months? I'm going, I was thinking maybe 250.
It's still be pretty darn good, right?
Yes.
In 18 months.
It's a good thing I didn't mention it because already I would have cut myself out of $100,000.
Yeah, for sure.
They eventually did buy it for $345, but still crazy. Yeah. And so with that seed capital, we weren't actually planning on selling it so soon because we had our plan to hold it for 5 years, refinance, and then take the equity out and buy another property. But at that time, we were actually consolidating our smaller portfolios and buying big buildings because it's just easier to manage. So it just worked out time-wise to go on to our next big property, and that's when Prince George came along.
So getting back to raising capital, so sounds to me like at the end of the day, your husband, who wasn't your husband, was just a mentor at that time, was your very first investor. Is that right? That actually put money into a deal? Interesting.
Yes. Yeah. And for him, it was a no money down deal.
Yeah, because
for me, it was a no money down deal.
Yeah.
Just amazing. Both of us did no money down. And
did very well with it.
Yes. So and then my mother was also one of my first investors too, in a multifamily.
So marching ahead, during this whole time, you're still networking, you're still doing all this kind of stuff. Talk to me a little bit about how you developed that core group of investors, because if I recall correctly, you kind of got a core group of investors that typically invest with you over and over again, and you kind of add on a little bit as you go along. And at the same time, you're growing up your database to thousands of people and sending everybody your newsletter. So how did you kind of do that and stay on the good side of the Securities Commission? Or was that something you're
Oh, you really, really have to be very cognizant of the Canadian Securities Commission and the BC Securities Commission. So I tell people that I'm private equity. And they go, what does that mean? Well, I'm not public, meaning I don't have an offering memorandum. I don't have a prospectus. Those documents cost thousands and thousands of dollars to create.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Some prospectuses are so complicated. If I actually once read a prospectus, it was $200,000 just to make it. And so you don't even have any money at this point. It's all like spent on this document, all designed to protect the public consumer from being defrauded. Like, have you read a prospectus?
I couldn't stay awake.
No, exactly. Exactly. It's like, what does this mean? And it's a great thing that I was trained by another mentor on how to actually read legal documents. You take a highlighter and you highlight everything you don't understand. And the first time I did this, I read a prospectus, 99% of the document was highlighted. 99%. And all I could say was, I'm so stupid. And the answer is no, you just don't know what you don't know. Let's go through every single line item and find out what is it about this sentence you don't understand. And that's how you start learning, by what you don't know. And so the average person does not know how to read a prospectus, let alone analyze it, which is really crazy, Dave, that we have these prospectuses designed to protect us. So what I do is, as private equity, I can only go after people for money who are my close family, not estranged family, close. But my aunt and uncle don't even qualify. My close friends, and so the Securities Commission has a test. Close means, do you exchange gifts at Christmas on their birthday? Do you know the birth dates and the names of all their children? Do you go to the ball games together? Like, literally, this is how close friends are, right?
I don't know the birth dates of my brother's kids, for crying out loud. I mean, I'd be
really qualify. And then close business associates. So people you work closely with, like, they qualify. And anyone that's a stranger who you don't know, they have to be accredited. And so what does accredited mean? You have to go on to Google and type in the words National Instrument 45106, NI 45106. And in that, that document will put you to sleep too, but there's somewhere around C, D, E, F, G. There's criteria in there about accredited means that you have $1 million net worth, or you have $5 million of assets, or you make $200,000 a year for the last 3 years, or between you and your spouse, you make $300,000 a year for the last 3 years. So that makes you accredited, meaning you're sophisticated enough to understand investments. And so those are the only people that I can take money from. If I take money from someone who doesn't fall in that category and the investment goes sideways and they lose their money, that investor has the ability to sue me for misrepresentation, which is why I never take people like that. So that's why I'm very careful.
Yeah, so you have to get close to people very, very quickly.
Yes, very. And believe me, there's one lady, a good friend today, when she found out, she actually saved up $70,000 to invest with me. She spent 4 years doing that. Wow. And then 4 years later, yes, she found me 4 years later. I'm going, out of a fluke, I'm going, how did you know I would even be at this seminar? She just said, I just had faith you would be there. I was speaking at the event. And she came up to me at the very end, once all the people had gone. She was the last person standing in the room and says, hi, July, remember me? And actually I did. Totally remember this lady. And she stood out. She's very unique. And she says, I did it. And I said, did what? I saved up the money. I'm going, what money? I saved up this money so I can invest with you. I'm going, I can't take your money.
Oh.
I don't know you.
No.
And she said, what do you mean? Well, you're not a close friend, you're not a close family, you're not a close business associate, and are you accredited? No. And so I said, if you had in that 4-year interval of time gotten to be my friend, then I could take your money. And so she said, guess what she did? She made her mission to be my best friend. Literally. She was like meeting me every day, and she introduced me to her family. She really wanted to become my close friend because I wouldn't take her money.
Right.
I said, I can't. It's illegal. And so she said, is there any way possible? I'm going, yeah, there's only one way. You have to become my close friend. And so I got to meet all her family. And even after, I still didn't take her money for a couple of years. Just to make sure that it wasn't some fad, some fanatical person stalking me. No, she's a very good friend to this day.
Nice.
And, has invested in multiple properties, and she's also a very successful real estate investor on her own.
So you eventually built up a portfolio of well over 500 rental units. That, I mean, I can't even, what do you think, what's your best guess on how much capital you had to raise to purchase that portfolio?
Oh, well, the largest one in Thunder Bay, one of the portfolio, $3.1 million for one, 200 units. And it was a 30 unit that was $500,000. That sold out in 10 minutes, actually, which was pretty cool. I just started going through my list in alphabetical order, and I had to stop after the 5th person. It's like, uh-oh, they're all saying yes, because they know.
Yeah. So $3 million for one, $500,000 for another. Pardon me?
Yep. And then, so I would say, $4 million down to buy 500 units.
Plus, you were building an apartment complex from scratch in Langley, which I think you had a bunch of investors on board for that. So, I mean, if you look at
10 million for that one.
10 million to raise for that one?
Yes. That one took a little longer.
Yeah.
I did 3 small raises over the course of a year.
So out of that 15 to 20 million that you've raised, give or take, how many people does that represent? Like how many?
45.
45 investors? Okay.
Because many of them reinvest.
Of course. Yeah.
Right. So the core is around, I would say 15 to 20. So the biggest one in Langley is the most investors I've had, 45 people, or actually 45 shareholders.
Shareholders.
Some shareholders are couples.
So before that, you kind of had your core group of 15 to 20 investors. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah.
Yeah. So those 15 to 20, you're a self-proclaimed hermit before you got into acting and real estate and all that kind of stuff. How did you develop that relationship with those people? Are they family members, or how did you kind of get it so that you were comfortable raising capital from these folks? And
well, Dave, seminars. Go out there and put on seminars. And so, yes. So people want to meet you. They want to see you in person. And I would put on a seminar a week practically when I was in my heyday. And so I had my course, Harvey Real Estate, and that was once a month. And in order to get butts and seats to the seminar, I had my free seminars, my evening seminars. I think on a Wednesday, Thursday, and I had my circuit. I go to Richmond, Burnaby, Surrey, and I would have and Vancouver. So these 4 places, once a week, I would be there, just giving out my free advice about real estate investing and all those interesting things. So I had to create curriculum and have a Q&A and become very good at public speaking. And that's where Harv's Train the Trainer program came in very, very handy. That's everything that I do is based on the Train the Trainer program. And so it's all about how to get people into the seats, how to deliver the information in a very accelerated learning environment, and then how to close at the end. Because you have to do all 3.
Right.
So guess what? You can't farm that out. You have to do it yourself.
Yeah.
Because I am the face of my brand. And so that after you do hundreds of those seminars, you get really good at talking to people. And I just love helping people. And when they're in a dilemma, the group is brilliant, right?
Yeah.
Genius mind. No, that's what Napoleon Hill did with his mastermind.
Right.
And so The seminars were just a venue to mastermind with lots of other like-minded people. I would just provide the venue and people would just show up. And eventually, you do this often enough, you become the trusted authority. And so within that group, we had a core group, the people who were the closest with money, who actually wanted to invest. Not the looky-loos on the fringes wanting to invest. These people had money. Mm-hmm. And so when you identify those people, you take them out on one-on-ones because they're special. Mm-hmm. You want to create rapport, lasting rapport. And that's why Steve and me, we would set up house meetings. We would go to someone's home and have either a couple or two couples. One of our anchor investors, he actually, one day, we thought we were just going to meet him and his wife. And he surprised us. We arrive and it's like, the room is full of like 24 people. It's like, what's going on here? Well, he wanted to invite his family and friends, his close friends, because he actually wanted to co-opt an investment that was coming and only have his personal friends involved. Okay. Yes. And guess what? It worked. He was able to pretty much monopolize this one investment with only his. Because he said, if I'm going to be in there, I want my friends and family to be in on this deal too. And so this one person just basically sold out a product that we had. And it's like, wow, he just cut out the work for me and that's when I went, oh, you bring one elephant to the well and they like what they drink. They go away and they bring the herd. And that's when I went, that really resonated with me because instead of me just going one-on-one, doing lots of work, I found the one key person that I needed to connect with. And he would go out there, or she, and bring the rest of their herd back.
I wrote that one. I bring one elephant to the well, and they bring back the herd. That's a
yes. Oh, thanks.
I don't know if you came up with that. Is that your?
I think I heard that somewhere.
That's the first time I've heard that. I like that.
I would really like to quote where I learned that from. Probably Robert Mackay. Build your well before Harvey Mackay. Build your well before you drink it. Maybe he's the one that wrote that.
Yeah, I don't think so. And actually, Harvey swiped that from Confucius for crying out loud.
Oh, did he? Oh, his title of his book. Yes. Okay.
Anyhow, very, very cool. So, July, you've been very successful at real estate, and interesting to hear how you started teaching and training and all that kind of cool stuff. Very, very cool. Very smart strategy there. Now, you've worked with a lot of people. You've been a mentor. You talk about getting mentored, but I know you have personally mentored many people as well. So, you know by now that not everybody is July Ono, right? You know by now that most people aren't going to go out and take acting lessons. Most people aren't going to go out and analyze 67 deals over 6 months and create a little binder. And most people aren't going to, just take the massive action that you have. And most people aren't looking to build the kind of portfolio you built either. So knowing that when you're working with your clients, and I'm not talking about the superstar clients that want to emulate exactly what you're doing, but the students that want to buy their next deal, they want to create a smaller portfolio. What advice do you give them about raising capital, finding investors, that sort of thing? What do you suggest?
I have way more of those clients than the superstar.
Of course, yeah.
Yes. And so when the students came to my course, they were only they had their goal, because you have to have a why. I already told everybody, because I learned this the hard way. If you have a what goal, the first obstacle is going to stop you, but your why goal is going to take you through to the end. So why do you want to be financially free? And so I would answer like, I want my wife to quit work. I can't stand it that we both have to work and our kids we have to put our kids in daycare. So there's a huge emotional connection with that. And I'm going, that's a great why. So you're working to get this portfolio so you can retire your wife. Fantastic. And another investor said, I really want to quit my job so I can go overseas and help in an orphanage. And I'm going, that's an excellent why. And it's because he probably had a personal connection there. So the better the why, the more emotional the why, I already knew that they would be a success. And sure enough, within 2 years, these people were able to retire their wives, and they were done. That's all they needed, right?
Okay.
And they started with local money. They went to their family and their friends. That's all you need. You just need to know how to leverage money. You don't need a lot. That's all.
So
right?
how do you coach, if you don't mind sharing a little bit, what advice do you give or what suggestions do you give to people about how to approach their friends and their family if they're just, because here's been my experience, July.
Yep.
Everybody's scared spitless of asking for the money, right? Yourself excluded, but everybody else is just so nervous about that. They get weird about it. They screw it up. Like you were talking about earlier, they focus too much on what's in it for them, not what's in it for the other person. So how do you
So this is how I do it, Dave.
breaking that
it's not about asking for the money. It's teaching and educating someone to the point where they ask you, can I invest with you? So I don't even have to ask people for the money, usually for the most part. They all want to invest. That's the best scenario. And how you do this is educate. So the bulk of my program was training the trainer. I was actually training every investor to become an educator. That's the number one that they had to do. And so it's like, you never go into trying to sell a deal to anybody. It's simply not going to work, because the majority of people do not know how finances work. They do not know how real estate works. I can tell you, my banker, my realtor, my mortgage broker, I had a lot of these people in my courses because they had no idea how to invest in real estate, and they didn't know how it worked. So if even they don't know how it works, how can you explain this to an investor?
Right.
So it's like, stop. Just copy me, teach people about the 7 profit centers in real estate. Did you know there are 7 profit centers in real estate, Dave? 7.
I thought there were 8.
There might be, but there's only 7 for me.
Okay.
And so,
the one I remember from you was reinvestment. That's the one.
That's number 7.
Yeah.
And so I would say, did you know, like, so Dave, do you have money in like a savings account or a GIC or term deposit? Yeah, I would say the majority of us do. And how's it working for you? Interest payment, 1%? Well, that 1% interest is 1 profit center, the interest. Real estate has 7 ways that it leverages your money, which is why all the wealthy put their money into real estate. So would you like me to explain to you how the 7 profit centers work? So you have to ask first, would you like me to explain? Otherwise, if you're not interested, pass. If they really are glommed onto you, they really want to know. So then my next question to you is, so Dave, are you familiar with a matador in a Spanish bull ring? They're the fighter in the cape, with the red cape and the spear. Yeah, well, let's just take the spear out. And the bull in the fighting ring, right? So the matador, we have a name for him. And his name is El Cipitar. Can you repeat that for me, please? His name.
El Cipitar.
Yes, his name is El Cipitar. El Cipitar is an acronym for the 7 profit centers in real estate. So when you want to remember the 7 profit centers, just think of the matador, El Cipitar, E-L-C-P-T-A-R. So it's very simple. E is equity, day 1. L is leverage. C is cash flow. No, L-C, yeah, cash flow. P is principal pay down. T is tax benefits. A is appreciation, and 7 is reinvest equity. I have to say LCPTAR in my head.
Yeah.
And then that's my elevator pitch, LCPTAR. And so I'm educating you on the 7 profit centers. Now, if that elevator pitch intrigued you, you go, hey, wait a minute, would you mind getting off the elevator and telling me more? Or they'll just go away. So if that doesn't interest you, it's a pass. That person's not interested in real estate. But if it does, then I have my 5-minute, my napkin. I get a napkin, explain LCPTAR on a napkin. And so you just get a napkin, which is like this.
Yeah.
And then I just write down E-L-C-P-T-A-R. So down the side, I write E-L-C-P-T-A-R down the side. Right. And then I write out equity, leverage, cash flow, principal pay down, tax benefits, appreciation, reinvest equity on the napkin. Exactly what I said, I actually write it down for them. And then I kind of give them my story. So I draw a little house. So all this, I've trained people to do exactly what I did. I draw a little house which is a fourplex. So this is my first fourplex story that I tell them. And it's just very simple math. I go, house is appraised at $220K. House is listed for $207K. Buy house for $186K. Difference, $34,000 equity, day one. That's profit center number one.
Yeah.
Where else can you get $34,000? Like, that's more than my salary at the city of Vancouver in a year. So I'm going, wow. And so that is the most important profit center, equity day one. If there's no equity day one, I pass, I walk away. And these are all in order of importance, because if the equity is not there, there's no point. And so when you're looking at this building, this fourplex, it was bringing in $2,800 a month at the time. And approximately with my mortgage of $747 a month, plus the interest, tax, utilities, $320 a month. So it's netting approximately almost $2,000 a month. So $34,000 divided by 2,000, that's 17 years, no, 2,000 a month, 17 months to get the 34,000 equity. I would have to own the fourplex for 17 months just to break even. That's why it's so important to get the equity day one. So when I'm explaining just this one profit center, I'm looking at their response to me. Are they engaged? Are they going, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that, this is fantastic? Or are they just going, oh, that's just numbers? You know, I'm gauging their interest. How coachable are they? How interested are they? Are they interested in just investing with me, or they do want to invest themselves? So I once spent 18 hours interviewing an investor. I didn't know. He just called me up and said, July, I heard about you from Dave Dubeau, I think. And I'm going, who are you? I want to invest with you. I'm going, who are you? I don't know anything about this guy. So I over the course of a few days, I interviewed him.
Right.
He thought he was interviewing me. I was actually interviewing him, because I didn't know who he was, if he's even accredited, and why. I have to know his. And so the whole thing is about getting people to their why. Why? So at first I was just training him. I thought he was coming to me for advice to become a real estate investor, because he asked him some very specific questions about a deal he was working on. So I gave him all my time, and I helped him how to do the deal and what he should be looking at. And then all of a sudden, about halfway through, this 18 hours, around hour 12 of 18 hours, he changed. He says, I think I'd rather invest with you, July. It's easier.
What you're talking about. Yeah, exactly.
Because it's a lot of work to go into all this stuff, and you can do it. But it's like, how much work did you want to do? He actually, at the time, didn't want to do all that work. He did later on go and do something on his own. But it's like, okay. And he turned out to be quite a lovely person.
That's good. That's good.
That's what you need to, that's why, so it's all about helping the other person with their agenda first. And I thought he wanted to become a real estate investor. I gave him the 7 profit centers. I told him how to analyze a deal, how to make sure cash flows, how to leverage his money, what kind of banks to go to, what mortgage broker to go to, that kind of thing. And then I think he was contemplating the whole thing, all the work it required. And he was a full-time employee, right? So he doesn't have a lot of spare time. And when can he go to the bank? And when can he do this? Well, that's something you have to arrange if you really want it that bad. And he says, I'd just rather give you the money for the next deal.
Nice.
It's like, wow. And it's like, okay, wait a minute. Do you really understand the 7 profit centers? And then that's when I go from educator to investor mode. And I teach people. So once I teach people the 7 profit centers in real estate, then and only then do I explain a deal. There's no point in explaining how a deal works if your client really doesn't understand how it works. And a lot of people will lie. Do you understand this? Oh, yeah.
Oh, well, they don't want to seem stupid. They don't want to look stupid. Exactly.
They don't. So you don't want to even bring them close to admitting the truth that they really don't know, because they appear dumb, and then they're embarrassed. So I just tell people off the get-go, my bank manager doesn't even know how real estate works. Real estate agents don't know how real estate works. Mortgage brokers don't really know how real estate works. They do their jobs really well, but they have no concept of how real estate works. I've had dozens, hundreds of these people in my courses and in my seminars because they want to find out how it works. And so when I finally get comprehension, and I'm like, oh, and you know how comprehension works? I take a personal story and put it into the LCP TAR. Like going, hey, Dave, do you have a parent that bought a house? Do your parents ever own a house? Sometimes they say they rented. And I said, well, how much was it worth? So like my family, my dad bought his house in 1987 for $134,000.
This is in Vancouver, right?
Twassen.
Yeah.
That house is, worth $1 million now, but at the time in 1987, it was $134,000.
Which was a lot of money in 1987, right? But
yes,
not $1 million. Yeah.
No, that was a lot. It was a high-end neighborhood because it was over 100, not under 100.
Yeah.
Is that crazy talking today? And so, I'm telling my family story because he's not a real estate investor, but because my dad believed in at least owning a house, that is an investment. And it actually saved my family's life, literally, out of financial ruin, because they held on to that house for 17 years. 1999? No. When did it buy Pine Valley? 2006, sorry. 2006. And it was 1987.
Yeah, 19 years.
19 years! Oh. So they held on to the house for 19 years. He paid down the mortgage, refinanced. At the end, in 2006, he had, I think, a very nominal $30,000 left on the mortgage because he kept doing blended mortgages and all kind of stuff. Take the equity out of the house and buy stuff. The bad deal. But in the end, the house was worth $575,000. So let's call it. I'll just round up to 50,000 for nice round numbers. That's $525,000. Okay, guess what I could do with $525,000? I invested it in 2 buildings.
Nice.
From that point on, just 1 share each. Retired them for life.
Beautiful.
The cash flow. They were able to finally have a decent living because their expenses were so much per month. They were slowly going into debt every month. And when I took over my dad's finances, he had $20,000 on a Sears credit card at 28.8% interest. And he was barely making the interest payments, not even touching the principal. This completely freed their lives up. And it's like, when I that's my family story. And I'm going, take your story. Just imagine the equity value just of owning a property for that length of time. Just time value.
Yeah.
The property went up. And so
that's that's brilliant how you do that. So you got your acronym, you got it in order of priority for you. You make sure that the prospective investor shows some interest in that first, and you educate them about that using personal stories so that it really resonates before you even show them the deal.
Well, it creates the bridge. So I don't want just my story. My story is like just to kind of pave the way. To make a really true bridge, you get them to tell their story. And you put it into the LCP TAR. So some people say, oh, my parents never owned, they only rented. I said, that's fine. So the house they rented, what do you think how much were they paying rent? Okay. And then how much was the property worth? You can probably get a ballpark value on it, right? You have to be able to enroll them in their own story. And once they take ownership of that, LCP TAR comes to life.
Yeah,
it takes on a completely different, it's not numbers anymore. It's their life.
It's emotional.
Yes.
It's that emotional.
And so unless you make that emotional transition, it's simply a head deal.
Yeah.
Really. And to really get the investors invested in you, it's head and heart.
Smart. Smart. July, we got to wrap things up time-wise here. I really appreciate it. If you're open for it, definitely love to have you on the show again. And that time, I'd like to talk with you about how you find your deals. We won't get into it this time, but obviously you've done a lot of deals over the years. It's how to find those good ones, how to, you're obviously an expert at analyzing them. So thank you so much for your input and your experience and your wisdom on attracting investors, raising capital. If people want to know more about July Ono, and what I highly recommend is get a copy of your book, if that's still available. What's the best way to do that?
Oh, I suppose you should email me, july@outback.com. I am working on my second book, by the way, The 7 Profit Centers in Real Estate.
Nice.
Yeah. So it'll be all over my email or my newsletter. And I do have a newsletter, July News, that goes out every single month. And if you want, you can just email me, say I'd like to subscribe, because it's permission-based.
Okay, perfect. So just reach out to you by email, july@otbec.com. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Which stands for On the Beach Education, if I'm not mistaken.
That's true. It is.
Excellent. July, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks, Dave.
All right, take care. Well, thanks very much for checking out the Property Profits podcast. If you like what we're doing here, please head on over to iTunes, subscribe, rate us, and leave us a review. It'd be very, very much appreciated. And if you're looking to create a regular flow of inbound investor inquiries about your real estate deals, then I invite you to attend one of my upcoming live online demonstrations. And you can check that out at investorattractiondemo.com. Take care.